So, yeah, my name's Anthony Hilb, and I own and operate Anthony's Lawn Care and Landscaping, and also Anthony's Tree Removal and Anthony's Junk Hauling. And we've been doing all of this since 2011. So, we've been doing it for a little while, and 13 years now. And that's 13 years, right?
2011.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can operate a business, but adding 13, ooh, I don't know about that. But anyway, yeah, started with a minivan and a push mower, and didn't have the money for a handheld leaf blower or a weed eater. I would literally take those garden shears, and I would use those to trim around mailboxes and garden beds where the grass gets a little bit longer because I didn't have the weed eater, and I would use a push broom to get grass off of sidewalks and driveways. And like I've talked with you about earlier, it was it's actually a really great way to start with absolutely nothing, because it really allows you to understand all aspects of the business rather than just jumping on a zero turn from day one. It lets you appreciate some of the harder work that goes into it, especially when you're not in the field as much anymore. Because I can definitely empathize with our guys for certain jobs, because I've been there, and I've done every aspect of the business. Um, I even climbed trees and used old bucket trucks to get trees down on the ground, and when I used to haul trees away in the early days, I would use a single axle utility trailer with what's called a cant hook, and it's just this little hook that you hook to big logs and you roll them up the trailer. And I mean, what would probably take me 2 weeks or even 3 weeks now of hauling a big tree away, our guys can get done in a day now. So it really makes me so much more grateful and appreciate everything we have now with having those humble beginnings, because um, we just didn't really have anything. So yeah, from push mower and minivan, and now we have, at this point, we have dozens of trucks and mowers and bucket trucks and lifts. And this year we'll probably hit around 37 employees in our peak season. So, but it's taken 13 years, and it's one step at a time. And I definitely went through those moments where you can feel a lack of patience when it's still not really going anywhere year 4 or year 5, but just sticking with it. And some luck has been involved too. Of course, I've been really lucky to get a lot of key partners, key employees, very supportive family and friends in my corner. So, there's definitely luck involved, but also a lot of hard work too. I mean, I probably did about 3 years straight of 100+ hour weeks. So I don't like to downplay that, because there's a lot of things we do now with 80/20 with people like Perry Marshall that I can really move the needle in 20 to 30 hours a week now if I need to, even though I still do put in long weeks because I choose to, not because I absolutely have to at this point. Um, but those long weeks in the earlier years were absolutely necessary, and we did that. And when we still do have to have long weeks now, we still do that. So there's some luck, there's a lot of hard work, and we are also in the right place at the right time. This might not be possible in a lot of other cities. So I'm really just grateful for being in the right place at the right time with the right people. A lot of the stars definitely did align with all of this to build the business we have. So yeah.
Great. So, out of all of your businesses, which one did you start first?
So I started, believe it or not, it was actually with that same minivan. I would help students that lived in dorms move. And since it's just a dorm, it's not that much. So I could fit most of their things in a minivan in 1 or 2 trips, and we'd throw the mattress on the roof. And don't worry, I did look into getting like a mover's license with a real moving truck and all that, because we were starting to get serious about starting a moving company early on, but it transitioned into lawn care and landscaping. But so we would help students, college students, move with the van, and also we did lawn care and landscaping. And the only landscaping I could really do was pulling weeds and maybe trimming some shrubs with the hand shears that I owned, because again I didn't have the money for hedge trimmers just yet. But after a couple of long years and putting in a lot of hours, I was able to get the necessary equipment for at least a basic setup. And so yeah, we started with junk hauling and moving and lawn care and landscaping, with lawn mowing and landscaping.
So how did you find your first clients? Were you like door knocking or what type?
Actually, IU had a free classified website at the time, and I would just advertise on there. And since I had no overhead at all, I was able to be really affordable, and I built a decent client list just with that. And then it was a lot of word of mouth and referrals, and I've just always loved to work. So clients from day one were, giving me the keys to their house when they were on vacation, check up on things, and we've just always been honest and good to everyone that we're working with. And so word spread like that. And yeah, but these days we have a lot of paid ads, obviously, and we're on YouTube and Google and pretty much every other platform. So, but yeah, in those early years, it was thanks to free marketing, because we didn't have any marketing budget yet. So, and we had a couple lucky breaks with clients that needed us like all the time. So we had clients that needed us on a weekly basis for their place of business or whatever it might be from referrals. So again, like I said, we met the right people at the right time.
So kind of going back to meeting right people at the right time. First of all, when did you hire your first employee? And how have the people you worked with impacted your business journey?
So our first employee, part-time, sometimes full-time, was in 2016. And he still actually works with us today, but he didn't work with us for all of these years. So he worked with us from 2016 to about 2018, and then started up with us again, I think in 2021. And he's a mowing crew leader, and he's eventually going to manage the whole mowing side. So he's still on a crew right now, though. But once we find replacements for him, he'll oversee multiple. He'll oversee probably 6 to 10 crews. But yeah, he started weed eating. It was me and him, and he was on a weed eater, and he got so good at it. Right people, right time. He got so good at it. You're familiar with edging, right? Along sidewalks and driveways. So he got so good at that his first season that we would have people call in and specifically request him because he was so good at that. So yeah, he's a great guy. He has attention to detail, and clients. Even this year, every year we have clients that request him. They'll say, if he's not mowing, we don't even want anyone. But he's still going to have to train people to do it exactly like him, so people don't know the difference. And I've been through that too, where clients wanted me, and as I got out of the field, so now I'm experiencing that. What I had to do on my own of getting out of the field as a field employee, I'm now doing with our field employees as they get into management. But yeah, he's been great. And other key people we've met along the way, I mean, it's just been blessings. It's just to the point where you couldn't even ask for a better person for the position. And so the people, all the employees that work here now, none of it would be possible without them. And we've shared as much as we possibly can with all of our employees, that's why I believe people have stuck around, because there's upside for them. As the company grows and makes more, they grow and make more, because that's the business model we have. I've always kind of thought of it as a franchise without being a franchise just yet. I mean, we could franchise this, and we're talking about that. There's several different models we can do, licensing, and we're exploring those avenues now. But with our key employees now, we share as much as we can, especially with the really pivotal players. And basically where they're a business, they own a business within a business almost is how I look at it. And yeah, I mean, a lot of these people, like I said, this wouldn't even be possible without them. So we've been we've been absolutely blessed and extremely lucky
How did you learn how to manage other people?
just by doing it. I mean, I read a lot of business books too, but you know, it's not all just copy and paste cookie cutter. There's different personalities. And I'm not even claiming to be great at it, but that's the first step of being effective is understanding some shortcomings. So, um, just by doing that over the years and promoting the right people, and it's not all fine. I wouldn't even say it's great, but it's about I think it's about making the right deals with the right people at the right time. So where you just find really good people and set them free. That's something that Richard Branson has said, and I'm sure a lot of other people say. That doesn't always work. You know, sometimes there has to be you have to track everything in the analytics, and what doesn't get measured can't be managed. That's a lot of how I manage is through numbers. I study the numbers. Since I worked in the field for so long, I know approximately how long jobs should take. And we have a lot of excellent employees who you can trust 100%, and their timelines are always ahead of schedule or right on schedule, mostly a little ahead of schedule. And so you can track those teams, and if someone's timelines are off 50% of the time and they're the only crew out of the 14 crews you have, and the other 13 crews are on target all the time, and there's that one that's not, that your estimates aren't incorrect 50% of the time. So our estimates are probably incorrect anywhere from 94 to 96% of the time. So there is estimate error for sure, where it's not the crew's fault, especially if it's a new estimator we have in the field. That's going to be higher. They're not going to have a 93 or 97% accuracy rate with their estimates. So knowing who did the estimate and where they are in their training with estimates is important too. But we've noticed we invest a lot of time before we let someone just completely do estimates on their own. So that's a good thing. But yeah, that's basically how I've learned how to manage people is through numbers, through analyzing the data, and then also with going in. I go into the office on a weekly basis. Maybe not every day at this point, but I still go and chat with people and form bonds and form relationships. Ask them how they're doing, what they like, what they dislike. Let them know when a job's well done. It's not. I do my best not to just get focused on the negative only, because it can be easy to do that in life and in business of just focusing on what's wrong. I always acknowledge when something's done extremely well, or if something's just done well in general. I'll point that out in a genuine way, not in a where it comes across like you're just saying that, almost like in the true genuine, hey, you did a hell of a job there, like 100%. The client's happy. I'll let them know if a client shares something positive or something negative too, which isn't always the greatest, but we've just learned by doing. And there have been some books along the way. Perry Marshall has helped a lot with management, because we're changing our whole approach with the Pareto principle and 80-20. So when you 80-20 all this, and you're hiring and promoting and retaining the right people that are in the top 20%, things take care of themselves a little bit more than if you're just hiring anyone.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So you sent me some like very personal reviews, or I don't know what you want to call it, but customers that were like really happy with the experience that they receive from your companies. What do you
Mm.
think is the key for customer success and making sure clients are happy?
So we do invest a lot in making sure the phone's always answered, making sure emails are replied to promptly, and our profits would be so much more if we didn't do that. At least in the short term, but not in the long run. So it depends on which lens you want to think about, because we invest a lot in making sure the phones get answered, and if they don't, making sure that clients who call in are replied to right away, making sure text messages are replied to right away. If there's ever a customer complaint, we go take care of it right away. We we overstaff because we have a safety net. So if three people can't make it in randomly this week, because there's always something like that going on. If a lot of employees can't come in that week, we have backups to our backups almost, which, you know, from an expense view can seem to be ridiculous, but we get clients who are very appreciative of, we didn't put them off for 3 weeks because so and so still sick, and what they thought was going to happen can't happen because one piece of equipment went down. If you have two or three backup avenues, even if it's a rental piece of equipment, if you have two or three backups, you can get the job done. So I think clients are willing to invest a little bit more with us because they know we'll do it, and they know that we'll do it well. And if they're not happy, we have the ability to go back because we have the funds to be able to afford that. So while we might charge a little bit more, it's guaranteed to get done, and it's guaranteed to get done well. And there's always going to be, but on the other end, like I'm saying, there are the expenses associated with all that. But as a result, when we say we'll be there on a Saturday, we'll be there on a Saturday, because we have 3 or 4 different crews to choose from. Eventually we can get someone to come in. There's enough of us at this point where it's going to get done. And I think a lot of times your average homeowner or business, their main complaint is they can't get a hold of the business that needs to do the work. And if they do and they hire them and people get sick or people quit, they're set, they're booked out 5 months now because 2 key players quit. So we've designed a system where we have backups to the backups, and we have backups to our backups for equipment and for employees, which results in being able to do what we said we're going to do when we said we're going to do it.
Awesome. And so before 2011, who was Anthony Hilb? What was he up to? What was life like?
So before 2011, I was actually playing drums in rock bands. And the first thing I started was with punk rock. And yeah, that was the first thing I learned. And then I had a drum instructor. This was I started about age 14. And he actually played, believe it or not, he played jazz, heavy metal, thrash rock, samba. Like he played samba and mamba. He played, he played every style really you could think of. So I became pretty versatile at drums and played in several different bands. And early childhood, for the first 5 years of my life, I lived in New Jersey, and I was born in Hackensack, New Jersey. And I moved to LaPorte, Indiana when I was 5. I was adopted. And actually, I was adopted by family. So the family that adopted me are actually my third and fourth cousins, and that was like I tell people it's kind of like a Will Smith when he goes to Bel Air or whatever, because I almost starved to death as a kid. And, I had my uncle and my grandma in New Jersey that helped me, but I went from a really rough situation where my biological mom had me at a young age to a really phenomenal situation. And so I've always had, gratitude has always been a center point for me. Like I've just always been lucky like that, and been extremely grateful. which has led to me, you know, turning to God and being religious in that way too. Which I'm not. I work with all types of people, so I'm not one of those that that I work with a wide variety of people. I have friends that don't believe in any religion at all, and I'm all it's all cool, but I've uh, I've just had so many experiences in life that have led me to believe in that, and if I pray to, well, we're getting off topic. We're talking about what I was doing in what 2011, before 2011.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
take it
mean,
wherever you want.
yeah. So I went to a great school, great elementary school, great middle school, lots of wonderful friends. You know, loved the high school I went to. I went to LaPorte High School, and played in bands when I was growing up, and that was just a blast because it was, in the year 2002, playing in a band was pretty cool. I don't know if it is. I don't know if like you're a teenager today if playing in a band is cool or what. But in those days, I mean, oh my gosh, you were invited to every party. We were playing all the time. We had a lot of friends and just tons of fun. But on the other end too, I played sports. I did every sport growing up: basketball, baseball, soccer, football for a couple of years, track, cross country, and I eventually I played soccer like in traveling leagues for many years, for about 8 years, and it was, I mean, we traveled everywhere. So I could have played high school soccer. Um, I was MVP my sixth grade year and eighth grade year, so I could have played high school soccer, and that would have been really cool. But I ended up doing track and cross country, and I went to state 4 different times, in track and cross country. So it wasn't just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I still did sports, and I had a job. My first job, I was 15 at a pizza place, and that was a great experience. And so yeah, But then when I did sports, I didn't have a job as much because the rule at my house was you either have to do sports or have a job. And at age 15, I was like, all right, I'll play sports, which took me away from the band a little bit, but I still played in bands all throughout high school and college, and just had an absolute blast with that. And right around 2010, 2011, the band I was playing with, two of the members moved to LA, and I was thinking about moving there. And before that, before college, I was going to go to Berklee School of Music for percussion. I was thinking about that. Didn't end up doing that. So I went to Indiana University and studied film, television, and advertising, which was a great program. And but after IU, I could have went to LA, and I was actually emailing with Kenny Aronoff, and he's one of the best drummers in the world. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's played on more number one hit singles than any drummer in the world. And so it was so cool because he went to IU, and he would actually email me back. I don't think he just had a virtual assistant back then. I mean, you know, it was actually Kenny Aronoff, and I was talking with him about because he lived in LA at the time, and I think he might have even had a house in Bloomington. But I was talking with him about getting lessons, and I was thinking about moving to LA. But as I was making it in a band a little bit and the lifestyle of it all, I decided that I would rather have the lifestyle of a business owner. I'm more of a person that likes to get up early and work all day rather than stay up till like 4 a.m. That's just how I'm wired. Would it have been fun to go play in bands? Sure. But my business, I read a lot of business books growing up, and my business mind started to take over with the economics of music. And I just really couldn't make sense of the economics of it all. There might have been some self-limiting beliefs going on there too, with the level of uncertainty. But I really like going into businesses that have a high demand with a low supply. Like, I mean, business 101, law of supply and demand. I love having tons of opportunities and not a lot of competition. Or if it is like a Red Sea type business where there is a lot of competitors, I like it to be where they're not great at marketing or customer service. And if I go into that industry we can have tons of opportunities. I don't like to just sit there all day and wait for people to get in touch. I like to be busy all the time. So I really like that about landscaping in this area, at least, where there's a high volume of calls. There's a lot of estimates. There's a lot to do. I like being in an in-demand industry. So when it came to music, the law of supply and demand really didn't make as much sense to me because it almost seemed like there was more musicians than there was a need for it. But I still love music, and believe it or not, we're talking about sponsoring local bands, and actually, me and some of the guys that work at Anthony's Lawn Care play musical instruments, and we're talking about joining the stage with other well-known bands in the area and like promoting Anthony's Lawn Care. And one of the guys even said, let's do the Anthony's Lawn Care band, which is like super bizarre. But yeah, before 2011, very musically involved in sports, and lived in LaPorte, Indiana, and moved to Bloomington, Indiana in 2006 to go to IU. Graduated from IU 2010, and shortly after 2010, that's when I first started promoting lawn care and landscape work. So
Awesome.
I know we're all over the place on that answer. We
No,
might
not at all.
splice and clip some things on all that.
No,
But
it's fine. These
yeah.
are great answers. What do you think the crossover is between music and business, if any? Did music teach you anything?
Oh man. So I was the guy in my band in high school that would have to muster the courage to go ask someone if we could play at their club. And making the like cold call. I didn't know what it was called back then, but I was making cold calls. Or I was doing like in-person cold, like a cold, hi, can we please play? Like I would go there in person on a Friday night and say, please let us play. And it was horribly awkward. And I was on the awkward squad for sure. And we used to be able to play in our library. And our library at the time, I'm not sure if it's still like that at LaPorte High School. It's this big glass area where there's like a big balcony up there, and you can see through this glass library. And it was this thing called the coffee house. And I had to muster up the courage to go ask the head librarian if we could play at the coffee house in front of the whole school in this big glass room that everybody could see from the balconies and throughout the hallways. And our first show was absolutely horrible in front of the whole school. But our friends went, and we had a lot of support, and it went well. But musically speaking, I mean, I was probably offbeat because, again, like I said, I played drums, but I was offbeat probably for about half of those songs. So, but we still had a blast. So that became a regular thing, though, where we're playing in our library in front of the whole school. So that took some nerve. And when it comes to operating a business definitely takes a lot of nerve too. There's a lot of risk. You're really putting yourself out there. It's embarrassing in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm experiencing the same thing with our YouTube videos now. We have over 3 million views on our YouTube channel from ads, not because people are voluntarily going to watch my 1 minute ad video, but because we're running the ads, and everywhere I go in town, people will know who I am and kind of give me a hard time. But sometimes I go somewhere and people will be like, "Oh my gosh, I hate you," but then by the end of the conversation, we're friends. But by being in a band, I had to do that same thing, and there were people who hated our band growing up. Not a lot of people. I was in a pretty supportive town with a lot of nice people, and we had a lot of friends and family go to our shows, and it was a really, really fun time. But you'd still have those people you'd still have haters. So I had to learn how to deal with that in a band, and I had to learn how to pick up the phone and call people. I had to learn how to go into my big desktop computer hooked up to the dial-up internet and send emails to club owners. Hey, can we play at your club? And so I had to learn how to make cold contact. And while I love marketing much more and people actually calling us in the early days of owning a business, when you don't really have any marketing dollars, sometimes that's just what you have to do. You have to knock on doors, you have to pick up the phone, you have to send that awkward email that cold email, and it taught me how to like really put myself out there in so many ways, getting up on stage in front of people, you know, calling people, emailing people, going and seeing them in person, talking to strangers. That was awesome for the business. And it also taught me, back in those days, when we recorded, we would sell CDs and we would sell T-shirts. So it taught us sales, and more importantly, it taught us how to develop relationships. So when we would promote our shows in high school, it wasn't just about sales. It was about developing and maintaining positive relationships with our friends. And we did have fans too. We would have fans from other towns that we didn't know, that they just heard of us from our music, and they would come to our shows, but we would still have to maintain communication with them. If they sent us an email or called us, because we didn't really text that much back in 2002 and 2003 and 2004. I mean, you could, but you had your good old flip phone. And, you'd have to keep in touch with those people if they gave you a call and they called your parents' phone. Is Anthony there? And it would be someone from the show that we played in Michigan City, Indiana, or LaPorte, Indiana. And I would return that call like, hey, we're playing a show this Friday, and we would pass out flyers. That was another thing. It taught me promotion. So we would print flyers in the library, and I would literally pass out flyers to everybody in the hallway to promote our show for that weekend. And so it definitely helped us with marketing and sales. And like I said, more importantly, developing good relationships with friends, family, and your fans. And that still holds true today. If this business is going to do well, not only do the employees have to be on board, their families have to be on board, my family has to be on board, our friends have to be on board. They have to understand, and maintaining that communication and maintaining the relationship helps you get the support you need, whether it's a business venture, a musical venture. You have to have support from other people, and keeping good relationships with people when it's with clients, family, friends. That goes such a long way. I mean, I have a couple friends that, one of them I used to play in a band with at IU, and he invested in Anthony's lawn care early on, and nobody else would. But from my band days, I had the courage to ask everyone I knew for money. And some people got really offended, like, how dare you ask me for anything? Like, who do you think you are? But, I was used to asking, and fortunately, since we're following the golden rule, and we're cutting people in on the upside where it's worth it. Like, if I'm talking with you and I say, if you give me X amount, here's what I can double your money in the next 5 years, guaranteed. Even if the business doesn't work out, I'll put it in a fund. Whatever you give me, I'm going to gradually put this in a fund, and I'm going to make sure you get X amount. And if we can make the right deal, and it's realistic, and it can actually be done, and it's not just some fantasy island, and it's actually real and can be executed, you're going to say, okay, I can do that. So we've developed certain investments if we need any investment capital with friends, that it's a win for everybody, and it works out really well. But by being able to maintain positive relationships with the people around us, that's been the main thing, and same with our clients today. I mean, so being in a band, I mean, that's a business venture, and I didn't know it at the time.
Well, sorry, it just paused for a second at the end of your. Awesome.
Yeah, I was just saying, playing in a band is definitely its own business venture. I mean, even if I was playing in a band today, we would keep a list. We'd keep an email list. We would keep, phone numbers, and we would let that list of people know when we're going to play. And it's the same thing with operating the business. We let our list know, hey, spring's around the corner. You might want to get on the schedule before before we're booked out 4 or 5 months. So, yeah.
So, what do you think the hardest point in your business career has been? Like, what was the toughest decision you've ever had to make, or like a nightmare experience? The worst.
The worst was no matter how many hours I put in, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how intelligently I worked, there is still no money at the end. Actually, it's in the negative. And anyone that we hire is making more. But that's part of the deal making strategy we have of taking care of those around us too. I mean, of course, the business has to function. It has to have profit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. Um, but what I had to do, I I didn't know it was sweat equity at the time, but I put in a lot of sweat equity where in order to make payroll, I would have to work 14-hour days on Saturday and Sunday. That way I could take that money that I made and it would allow me to make payroll that next Friday. I had to trade my personal time and effort in to make sure that everybody else got paid and that the customers were taken care of. So it was probably from the first few years were kind of tough in the year 2011. Um, but I also didn't have any debt and I didn't have a bunch of equipment to maintain and I didn't have employees. It was just me on my own. And I had really, really low overhead with my business and personal life. So those years weren't as bad. But when I decided to go big with this in 2016 and I took on debt and I took on employees and I probably did things sooner than I should have because I wanted to have that momentum. I knew that if I could get the ball rolling and get that momentum and get the snowball effect going, that in the long run it would be better than just, you know, than taking 23 years to get to where I am now. You know, because I don't have the patience for that. I don't have the patience to take 27 years, you know. So fortunately it worked out, but that meant that in the year 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, a lot of 2020. It was about 5 straight years of even if you work 112 hours a week, you still don't have any money. And I wanted to just sell it and get rid of it. And I just wanted to sell it, pay off my debt, and just be free and clear. Probably in around 2018, 2019. And nobody we talked to was that interested. I mean, we had one offer for like 10 grand or something. And so that was kind of a nightmare situation because if you worked at a normal 9 to 5 and let's say you work 2 jobs and you put in a lot of hours, if you're an employee, you're getting paid no matter what. But as an entrepreneur, that's not always the case if you're going the sweat equity route. Which, don't get me wrong, like I said, I had debt, but then I had to pay that off. And the economics of the business, I didn't know how to properly bid jobs yet. I didn't know how to properly manage crews yet. There was so much that I just didn't know yet that I had to learn from experience. And so I had to learn that the hard way. And I had a lot of mentors and a lot of great books and business development programs I went through over the years that probably saved me a decade or two of time of learning it the hard way. So I didn't completely learn it the hard way. But those first years are probably the worst nightmare scenarios where no matter how hard I work, no matter how much money I make, even if we have $500,000 a year in sales in those early years, and I'm still making like 14 grand and not able to pay my bills, not able to help my wife. I was able to help, but not to the level I should have been. And then wondering, what am I even doing? Like, why am I doing all this? Like, I'm putting in all this effort and nothing's even happening. That is one of the worst feelings in the world, I think, of you're working so hard but going nowhere.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Looking back, are you happy with the decision you made to kind of take on a little bit of leverage and go big, or would you have done it differently if you could do it over again?
I probably wouldn't do it that way because I would know like the kind of the stress levels and the trade-off that came with it. However, it worked. So I'm happier right now that we did it that way than I would be had I not done it that way. But I would have just had like more normal years those years in my life, which so so by leveraging that and doing all that, I was able to become pretty successful at an early age, probably about 32. Um, at age 32 was the year we hit our first $1 million year. Um, I'll take a break real quick because you froze on me. You there?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
froze.
sorry,
You
it just
froze
keeps
on,
cutting in and out.
yeah, you froze on me. Did I freeze on you too?
Yeah, it's been
Okay.
happening at like towards the end of questions, so sometimes it's a little awkward. But like I'm still,
Okay.
and whenever the recording processes, it won't be cut out like that. Um,
So yeah, I mean, it was definitely worth it because the trade-off was some extremely stressful years for about 5 years, I'd say, and then the return for that because it worked. I mean, there's always a chance that it won't work, and then you're really screwed. But since it did work, and since I started just changing my approach until things worked, and you know, just I just improved little by little every single day and every single week. And then there eventually, what eventually ended up happening was a compound effect where, where all these little improvements that we made over time finally just compounded. And the key people that we kept on board with us for years and years, they know our systems, they know our processes. So what happened was this compound effect, probably late in 2020 and then early 2021, where it all just took off. And so at about 32 years old, that's when we hit $1 million in sales, and then 1.6 million, and then 2 million, and then 3.2 million, and but we've shared what we can with the people on board, and it's worked very well. But now we have a very stable operation where it's worth it, and where my net worth is. I didn't expect to have a net worth of what I have right now until I was in my late 60s. So I was able to that. The trade-off was I was able to be 3 decades ahead of schedule of where I thought I would be in life, which was pretty cool.
yeah, not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. So, and I, and and the same, it's funny because the same thing was happening with my wife and her career at the same time. So like she hit those exact same milestones at the same time as me. So that allowed us to get, you know, our dream house, some of the cars that we wanted, and all that cool stuff. And it also allowed me to be able to share more with our key employees, which even now with the economy how it is and inflation and all that, we still have a little ways to go with our key employees and just employees in general. But we still are paying more than I believe any other company in our industry in our area. But still, I would like to see them all doing better. But we have to blend that with the security we have in the business, and when we have to think about the client too. I mean, it's not like the client will just pay anything. We have to. It's not just charging more. It's not that simple. It's, well, how can we become more efficient? You know, how many crews are wasting 2 hours a day just sitting on their phones? You know what I mean? Like, and if we can improve that, then people can make more. Um, but yeah, it's all been worth it for sure in the long run. And if I could go back, I probably would do it differently just because of how stressful those 5 years were. But like I said, I'm a few decades ahead of schedule, which is really it's a great feeling. Um, but it also led me at about in the year 2021. I actually kind of became jaded from it, believe it or not. Like, where I thought, okay, what's the point of life now? I mean, I got everything I wanted for the most part. I mean, there's always more, but I mean, I really got most of what I wanted at a pretty young age, by about age 32, 33. And as far as business success and personal success goes, so I had to keep pushing forward, and I did. But it was something that I had to like use my willpower to keep going and discipline. Because at that point I just wanted to kind of just hang out and not work as much anymore because I had gotten everything I wanted. But then I realized sometimes success is what undoes success. So it's like I read all these books on how to become successful, but then once I became successful, I hadn't read any books about what to do once you actually get there. I was like, okay, now what? Like, I read all this, I listened to all these audiobooks, I did all these business training programs, I got to the goal, and then I was like, okay, but now what? So I hadn't read anything about what do you do to maintain success? What do you do to manage success once you get it? I had just read about how to get to success, but once you get there, okay, now how do I maintain this monster? And, I just kept going because I knew it was the right thing to not be complacent. I was complacent, but I made sure that my actions were not complacent. I made sure that I stayed disciplined, still went to work every day, still grew the company, still hired and promoted the right employees. Even though I've worked through that now, and I'm in a group called Roundtable with Perry Marshall. That helps me a lot. And then finding meaning in other ways where I'm not just doing things for selfish reasons. Tony Robbins said he went through that where he got everything he wanted and he started to get complacent. But then when he started donating to an organization that fed starving children, it gave him more of a meaning to keep growing so he could give back to the world in a bigger way. So that the first time that happened to me was with employees looking around and realizing, oh my gosh, a lot of our employees have families and kids and they're counting on me. So instead of just being motivated about only what I want, because I hadn't gotten them, for the most part, I mean, yeah, there's always different things that you can get. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's a never ending thing, but I had gotten like my core areas. I had gotten those things. And then what motivates me more than anything now, and that really keeps us growing, is knowing, hey, a lot of these people have families and are depending on us. And a lot of these clients love working with us, and they don't trust the other people, the other providers that they've had, and they really like the setup with us. So we need to keep going with it. And then another thing is, like with Perry Marshall, he has the foundation Reversing Cancer, where, it's a foundation where he's looking for cures to cancer and also looking for ways to detect cancer when it's at stage -1 or stage 0 before it gets to stage 3. And so finding different charities and different ways to donate too, and to give back to the younger generation of employees that we have. Some of them don't have families, but some of them, the last 3 jobs they had were a complete nightmare. So creating an atmosphere, I don't know if you got that last part, but another source of meaning is some of the younger employees that we have here, their last 3 jobs have been with people that are just absolute nightmares. If they're late once, they're fired. You know what I mean? Like, you have your old school businesses like that. And I'm not saying that I condone that and that's all good, but what I'm saying is I like to be, if at all possible, is to have a little bit more flexibility and a more compassionate workplace. And unfortunately, it can't always be that way, because if you let 1 or 2 people get away with something, now all of a sudden everyone wants to do that, and now the company's losing money and can't survive. So that's a slippery slope there. But I definitely give some guys more than a few chances. I mean, I try to work with and develop people, and honestly, most times it doesn't work out. But on the occasion that it does, it's worth it, and that gives me a lot of meaning of, maybe that person wouldn't fit in. Well, actually, I know that a lot of the people I work with do not fit in at other places, myself included. There's a lot of places where I personally just won't fit in. And so it's cool to be able to create an atmosphere and a company culture where we have a group of people where we fit in here and we have a great company culture here and we're happy here, even though at the majority of other places that's not the case. So it's cool to create an atmosphere like that and finding meaning in other things that aren't just for myself. Have fueled a lot of our growth.
Where do you see Anthony Hilb 10 years from now? Also, for this last question, I'm going to turn on low data mode, which might make it so that you can't see me, but I'll be able to hear you better.
Okay.
Just in terms of the call. And then you'll be able to hear me better because it's been freezing the last like 5 minutes every now and then.
So,
Okay,
I mean,
can you hear me?
yeah.
Perfect.
So 10 years from now, there's a lot of variables at play here. It depends on what opportunities come my way and who might want to team up with me for different ventures. But as part of the answer to the other question, since I have created this company culture of misfits that fit in here and we're happy here and we're really doing great work. Even though a lot of us don't fit in other places, we do here and we're happy here, so we do great work here. So regardless of where I personally go, I always want to keep Anthony's Lawn Care and Landscaping and Anthony's Tree Removal going for the people that work here. And also a lot of them can just take it over, and I would take a cut and give it to them rather than just myself. If I'm not involved in any of the day-to-day operations and I still make a decent income from it, I don't have to have all of it. The business doesn't have to have all of it. The business still needs what it needs, of course. But there's a lot of key players here who could really make a lot as we grow. And so in 10 years from now, it depends what opportunities come my way. If I don't get any other opportunities that are not in this industry, I would like to either make this a franchise or be able to keep growing in a way where we pay people as if they're owners in other cities and states, where there's something in it for them. There's upside in it for them. It's worth it for them. So they're motivated to do it and to just continue to grow. I would definitely like to be in 20 to 30 cities, but it's not just about the cities and it's not just growing for the sake of growing. I also want to make sure that we have the right systems and protocols in place and the right people and the right culture. And from my experience so far, that can take 3 to 5 years to develop the right people and the right culture in different cities. So patience will definitely be at play. But I would like Anthony's Lawn Care to serve a lot more cities in Indiana. I would eventually like to have locations in Kentucky. Louisville would be a great place. There's places there's really good locations in Tennessee, I believe. I think Nashville, Tennessee would be a really cool place to have some operations. Other places down south, maybe Florida. It just depends. I mean, we have to do our market research, but regardless of what opportunities come my way, or the opportunities I create, in 10 years from now, I would like to just keep growing personally and on an inner level, and also with the deals that we're creating for employees and clients with any business I'm involved in, where it's just a win all around for everyone. And yeah, I would like to be able to, in 10 years from now, if Perry Marshall, let's say Perry Marshall he started his reversing cancer nonprofit 10 years from today. And 10 years from now, I would like to be able to, I'd like for the company or the companies I own or myself, I would like to be able to donate the majority of the money a guy like him would need because a guy like him is going to change the world. And I would like to be able to invest or to donate to bigger causes like that that could really move the needle and really change the world for the better when I'm called upon. And that's not depleting the resources from the business we have. That would be to a point where we're comfortably able to write that check for $500,000 or $2 million and potentially change the world for the better. So I would really like to be involved with different charities and different organizations, and I'd really like to have a workplace where people can continue to increase their income, and it's not just a dead end, unless that's what they want. Because there are a group of employees out there who they just want a job, and that's okay. Not everybody is wired that way, but to be able to have an environment and companies where people come to work with me to grow their income, to grow to grow themselves as people on an inner level, and to just keep growing that impact over the next 10 years. I would love to be in that scenario. I would also love to be able to, if I do want to take a year off to explore different opportunities, I want to be able to take time off like that to be able to explore different opportunities and meet different people and help the world in different ways. I would like to I would like to have enough time and money to be able to explore different opportunities in 10 years from now and help different organizations, or start other franchises or start other companies, while still maintaining what we've created. It's not my goal to just sell this and get out of this. The opportunity would have to be to just sell it would have to be pretty incredible, because like I said, I really care about the people who work here and want to keep expanding on that company culture. So yeah, that's where I would like to be in 10 years from now.
So out of all of the charities you could be interested in, what stuck out about Perry Marshall's Reversing Cancer?
So what I really love about Perry is he's obviously written 80/20 sales and marketing, and he'll take 80/20 to the second, third, fourth, and fifth power. So I firmly believe that when you donate in a charity that Perry Marshall has started, your dollar is going to go a lot further than another organization, because he's pursuing activities that move the needle way more than your average person, and even your average wealthy individual. Perry has a way of, I believe that $1 million in the hands of Perry Marshall is probably worth 50 million in the average person's hand, even the average wealthy person's hands, because Perry knows how to leverage that more than almost anyone on the planet with how deep he's went on the 80/20 rule. And that's why I want to be involved with any charity he has going on, because he's leveraging that. It's not I think your dollars invested in something with Perry Marshall are going to have a way bigger impact than when they're invested with the majority of other charitable organizations.
Awesome. And where can... I'm going to turn off low data mode just so we can see each other for this last part. Awesome. Where can people go to find more about you?
So really the most about me is on our website. You can check out anthonyslawn.care.com. It forwards to bloomingtonlandscape.com. That's the actual URL it operates off of. But anthonyslawn.care.com or bloomingtonlandscape.com. There's anthonystreeremoval.com, and there's also anthonyhilb.com. I still need to, make some edits on my personal site, because I've also done some consulting work for other landscape companies, and I don't do too much of that, and I would like it to be just consulting work in general in the future. Not right now though. Right now I'm really hands-on, and I love building businesses. So when it comes to consulting, of course I enjoy it, but what I enjoy more is physically building businesses. So that's what I spend most of my time on. But yeah, Anthony'sLawnCare.com, Anthony'sTreeRemoval.com, or AnthonyHilb.com.
Awesome. Sweet.